Hi everyone, it's Anne. Welcome to my channel, Head Trip Creations, where I create mixed media portrait art. This is the second time that I did the faux lithos, one with and one without mixed media. So I came up with a new recipe that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to show you all the different materials that I used and take you through the process. The video will start now. Enjoy. So the materials include 140-pound watercolor paper that I got at Five and Below. It's thick and smooth, and this is a sheet protector. It's very flexible, which is ideal when you're laying it down on the paper, but it is not quote unquote acetate, as I mentioned in my last video. So my bad. Acetate is too hard for the process. And here are a few brushes that I just broke out depending on what I want to do. This is a mini mister. I do use it in the process. Q-tip to dab some extra water. That was a scraper tool. And this is black acrylic paint. This is glazing gel, water. That's the recipe, and that's just to clean my brushes. And it's just good to have paper towel, rags, and gloves on. So this is the black acrylic paint, and you can see in a little container, I'm just pouring it in kind of loosely. I'd say that it's like maybe a 50-50 ratio with the acrylic paint and the glazing gel, and then a few drops of water. And then the next thing is just to mix it up, and the consistency should be not too drippy. It's not very technical, but not too drippy. So here we are. We're going to start the faux litho one without mixed media. So I have it sped up, time lapsed, maybe 4-speed. And I'm laying the paint down with a thin brush. It's pretty thick. So this is the thing. When you're using this kind of a process, even with the glazing gel, it's going to dry if you take too long. So throughout the entire process, it's important to be mindful of the drying time and how much water that, like if you have too much water or if you have too much paint, when you lay it onto the paper, it's going to turn into blobs. So you have to just try to not have too little because it's going to dry too quickly, and not have too much. Otherwise, when you lay it onto the paper, it's going to, from the pressure, it's going to turn into a blob. So it really is a hit and miss, and you just have to do it enough times to figure things out where you can anticipate. When you look at some areas, you can say, oh, that acrylic paint is too thick on the eyes. Like if you have the eyeballs too much paint, it's going to just ruin it when you lay it down. And if you have too much water in certain areas, when you also lay it down on the paper, it's just going to really bleed and ruin everything. So it's kind of like a science in a way. Here I am just adjusting her eyes, erasing things with the wet brush, just with plain water. And other areas, like here, I just used the mister just to keep the paint wet, even though it has the glazing gel in it. And so you can use a wet brush to erase, as I mentioned. And now I'm flipping it, and you see how the on the right, it just, with the suction, it just, with a lot of water, it just bled right onto the eye, which it turned out okay. And I was happy with that. And now being very careful where you add pressure. And there she is. So she is done. And now we're moving on to number 2 with mixed media. So when I say with mixed media, I use the same process that I just used for number 1. And then at the end, I use a Tombow marker and a precision pen to just finish her with fine details. So again, just starting the composition, it's very rough, and that's her neck, and like her face right now, her chin is too big, and so I just refine as I go, just do some kind of random hairstyle, and you'll see I erase by wiping away various areas, and I actually wiped away both of her eyes at one point. Now I like the way her eyes look, but I think I added too much water at one point. It was too much paint and it just got so blurry. Here I'm using a lot of water. I thought maybe I would add a lot to get quote unquote texture. Like I don't want it to be too solid. And so I like the way she looks right now. But I end up using too much water. And I actually cut out a lot of footage where I was doing water management, because if there's too much water, see around her hairline, if there's too much water, it's just going to, with the suction, when you lay it down on the paper, it's just going to turn into a big blob, and it might even cover her eye. I like the way she looks if I wasn't transferring her to the paper. If she was already on the paper, I like the way she looks, but that's not the case. And, you know, with that in mind, I want to make this point. What you see when you're drawing on the plastic is not what you get after you press it. The portrait looks very different because some parts stick and other parts don't. And things kind of spread out and dissipate and smear. So here I think is where I added too much paint and then trying to fix it. And once I did this, I said, okay, I'm going to start over. And I'm glad that I did. Even though I liked her eyes before, I really like the new set of eyes. Something about her, it really gave her personality. And she just looked more, I don't know, sophisticated. You could just see her personality. And then I'm adding straight paint with the glazing gel, but without water, to get more contrast. And so around the neck, around the face, and it's still very wet all around, but I removed a lot of water. And just trimming her chin, darkening her hair. And because it's so wet, when I press it, it really, you know, kind of has texture, if you will. So we're kind of in the home stretch here before flipping her over, and now I'm going to flip her, and I get a drip onto the cheek, and I'm okay with that. And I'm just going to watch to see what the suction does, and you can see that it really wasn't too bad. And now I'm using the palette knife to go over certain areas. And then I use the scraping tool as well. I use my hands. So you learn to, you know, use your fingers, your tools. And now I'm going to pull. And I'd say maybe 70% took. And I like the way she looks. And I could see all kinds of possibilities to fill in some of the areas. Now, this is really important. If I were to go into it the way I would normally do a portrait, I would just ruin the whole vibe of this litho look. So I want to stay true to this look where it's kind of silhouette, half black, half white, very has a lot of shadows. So I am just kissing certain areas with the Tombow. It's a dark gray, and what's really cool is it's water reactive. So when you hit it with the wet brush, it turns blue. And so I really took advantage of that. So I'm just adding some shadows. I'm not trying to finish every part of her face. So if you're going to do this, definitely be mindful not to treat it the way you would normally. Just keep the vibe of the litho. So I'm just using a little bit of the Tombow because I know it's water reactive. And I'm going to want to just hit it a little bit on her eyes, her nose, and her lips. Here I'm using the dirty water to get some shadows. And now, see what happens? And later, when I go into certain areas, I just tap. Because it's, I know that if all of a sudden I get this big drip, it's going to ruin. So here I'm just tapping. And I didn't even use the heat tool because it would blow the water across her face. And this is sped up, so you could see just how much time I took. And I love this part, like right under her eye. Just a little bit goes a long way. And it just helped define her eye socket. And here, just dirty water for the shadow on the side of her nose, being careful not to hit the blue. A little bit on the nose, a little bit on the lips. Still working with the brush. And now this is a precision pen. And so I'm just working on things here. I'm stippling just tiny little dots instead of going hard to make shadows. I could have cross-hatched as well. And it almost seems like, why bother these little dots? But believe me, it shows up. It makes a difference right there. And she is done. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me do these two faux litho gals. If you have any questions about my process or materials, leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. And if you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you will because I upload regularly. Until the next video, take care. I'll see you soon.